Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, welcome. So we're here today to discuss the Bayern versus Dortmund 4-2 game. And I wanted to do this in a multitude of ways. I wanted to look at the stats. I'm not the biggest stats fan, of course, but I think the stats do sometimes tell a story. So I wanted to look at the stats. I wanted to look at just other sort of media surrounding this game. And then obviously the voices from the club, the players themselves as well, before we talk about it in more detail ourselves. And there may be people coming in later on during this discussion that will hop in and give their take and their thoughts on it. But it is a Sunday, so don't expect too much. Now, with that said, when it comes to stats, I think the best place to really go to is SofaScore 9 times out of 10. So let me just bring up the statistics for all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll go through them one by one and discuss them in as much detail as we possibly can. So let me bring up SofaScore and talk about the stats that we'll be talking about. But just my general overall thoughts on the game, I guess I'll get that out of the way, is I was very satisfied. I think satisfied is the correct word here. Not happy, not sad, not distraught, not over the moon, but satisfied. I obviously know that changes can't happen, right away. But what I wanted to see was just something. Something. That's all I wanted to see. Just something. Just for there to be something that I can attach and hang on to and be like, you know what? Yeah, I can see it. I can see what Tuchel is trying to do. And obviously, we had the big first, not shocking news, but the big first decision that came up, and that was, of course, the discussion about what formation. And we started off with a 4-2-3-1. So something that a lot of the players are very familiar with. I don't want to say all the players, but something that a lot of the players are familiar with is how we played. And it was just very interesting because we all thought, oh, he's going to go with a back three. The players know it. We're going to go with a back three. Also, just let me quickly check that the audio is fine. Yeah, it is. So that was sort of like the thought that a lot of people had, that, oh, he'll go with a back three. He just came in. He really hasn't had time to, gel around and mess around with the team. So he's just kind of go with what the players know and are familiar with. And he went with a back four. And yes, we played with a back four multiple times during the season. But he went with a 4-2-3-1 specifically. And that's very interesting to me because a 4-2-3-1, audio's good. Ready the Wild? Hey, appreciate it. Ready, I said Wild. Ready the Vit. I appreciate it. And a 4-2-3-1, and you know what I found very interesting? There has been a lot of talk about Müller, Thomas Müller. He's not had the best of seasons this season. There are discussions of, well, does he need Lewandowski? Is that the reason why he's dropped off so much? Because there was no Lewandowski, and now he has to deal with Choupo-Moting. And also people have said that. Other people have just said, well, he's getting older. It's just getting worse. And typically, you can make that correlation between a player getting older and a player getting worse. But in this case, Müller isn't really a player that that relies on his physicality. So like him getting older shouldn't necessarily make him that much worse. It's not like we're a counter-attacking team either. Alpha, welcome. It's not like we're a counter-attacking team either. So age really shouldn't matter too much for Müller. And it's really just a case of him knowing his role, him knowing where he stands, him knowing where he's supposed to be. And in a 4-2-3-1, a system that he essentially got brought into the squad with, if you want to call it that, all the way when he first debuted, when his debut happened, you can say that, what? Fair enough. We play a 4-2-3-1 and look who excels. Look who shines. Look who is amazing. And it was Thomas Müller, who, in my opinion, was the man of the match. I don't know who actually won the man of the match award, but based on every metric and based on everything that that I value, he was the man of the match. Oh, you could say Meccano, or if you could say Kobel. that'd be a little bit, that'd be a little bit rude. But you could make those arguments without Kobel. Who knows how the game would have gone? But to me, man of the match easily Thomas Müller. For me, very clear as well. And it's very telling, that we play a 4-2-3-1. He excels, and then later on, the second he comes off, we concede 2 goals. People say that, how does him going off impact the game. Well, my argument is it impacts the game in a very simple manner, in a sense of him going off means that the pressing from the front, yes, he's not a defender, yes, he's not a midfielder, so to speak, a defensive midfielder or central midfielder, but him going off impacts our pressing from the front right away. So that just means that, you know what, that Dortmund will be under a lot less pressure. So with the second he came off, we conceded 2 goals. I mean, looking at the minute that he came off, let me just have a very quick look. Thomas Müller came off in the 69th minute. Nice. And we conceded in the 72nd minute and the 90th minute. So 3 minutes after he went off, we conceded. Can you make the correlation? Sure. Will I make the correlation? Sure. Is that 100% a correlation? Perhaps, but I'm making that. So yeah, to me, Müller was key, and I very much liked to what Nagelsmann had to say about Müller after the game, and it was basically saying that the reporter was trying to get Nagelsmann. Sorry, not Nagelsmann. The reporter was trying to get Tuchel to say, can you give us a guarantee that he'll play every single game? And Tuchel was essentially saying that, well, I can't give you that guarantee outright, but a player like Müller, like he just does so much for the team. He runs so much, he presses so much, he helps the guys, he knows his position so well, he could integrate the guys into where they should be playing, so on and so forth. And he was giving you a lot of praise, but he didn't want to give him a like a Müller plays all the time kind of guarantee, so to speak. And I very much like that, because yes, this was an amazing performance from Müller, but Müller typically excels when he plays against Dortmund. Typically, like 9 times out of 10, he excels when he plays against Dortmund, and that was also obviously the case yesterday as well. But you can't guarantee that. Well, he's going to continue that throughout the whole season, so on and so forth. But it is quite interesting. I think that new manager comes in and Müller performs. We play a 4-2-3-1, and Müller performs. I think when you take all of these things into consideration, you can really say that, yeah, this might be the quote-unquote Müller remontada, so to speak, the Müller remontada. Now, with that said, let's have a look at some stats, and then we'll go over to some interviews. Let's have a look at some stats. Again, I don't believe that stats should, ever... How will I define it? I don't think stats should ever be the sole thing that you look at. I think stats are okay, but I just don't like when people just gravitate towards stats and like ignore the actual game. Because let me show you the stats, and I'll tell you right away, what I find, why I don't like stats. I'll tell you right away. But let me just show it to you, ladies and gentlemen. Just give me 1 second while I bring it up. There we go. So if you can see my screen right here, here's why stats, they're neat, they're fine and everything, but they're not the end all be all. Because if you look at the expected goals, Bayern's expected goals were 2.26. Dortmund's expected goals was 1.71. Now, that's the very interesting part, because a lot of Bayern fans were saying, well, Bayern should have won 8-0, 7-0. We had the chances to win 7 or 8-0. Well, yeah, we did. If you watched the game, we did. If you watched XG, you wouldn't think so. Like you look at that and you're like, is that really the case? We had 9 shots on target to Dortmund's 4, and yet the XG isn't that much different. And XG is obviously just one aspect of the stats, but that's why I don't like looking at them. You can see the table right here. We're currently 2 points ahead of Dortmund, who have that L to their name. And now that we've gotten that W, our last 5 actually don't look that bad. It's a W dot L dot W. So that's kind of our stats right now. I quite like 6 corners, 9 shots on target, 4 shots off targets. And obviously one thing that we have to work on is the 5 offsides. That's been a story of the season, it being 5 offsides and then 11 fouls. I don't mind that too much. I did find it very interesting that like Kimmich didn't commit a single foul. And because typically Kimmich in these type of games, you kind of expect him to commit a foul, but no, he didn't. And you look at the big chances, 5 big chances. And that is insane. Like, that is insane. And we've missed 2 of them. That's crazy. Do I feel that Bayern winning the Bundesliga 10 times in a row is now hindering the growth of Bayern in the league? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I don't think that is a thing that Bayern winning the Bundesliga 10 times in a row is hindering the growth of Bayern in the league. Some could make the argument that, the league has grown quite a lot over these last 2 years. You look at the Europa League winners, you look at, the consistent. Well, Bayern is obviously always consistent, but you look at the other teams sort of, sometimes doing well in Europe as well. There is always a chance for these teams to do well. Leverkusen have a good chance of winning it as well, the Europa League this season. So is there, is Bayern winning it a hindrance to the league? I don't think so. I think the league has gotten stronger and stronger, but I also think that perhaps you could say that, make the argument that Bayern was getting weaker. Whether that remains to be the case, I don't know. I don't believe so. But I do think that your league is getting stronger and stronger, despite the limitations that are placed on it. And I think that it doesn't really matter how often Bayern win, because you look at the title race. Leverkusen, they're in 7th right now, but they have a very good chance of getting into the Champions League places because they've been on a winning streak. Like, you look at their form. Their form is better than everyone else's, even including obviously Bayern because of that one loss. Like, Leverkusen has been the team in form in this year, and the fact that it's relatively close. Like, obviously Bayern currently is 2 points ahead, so on and so forth. But like the table from 1 to about, I'd say 1 to about 4, maybe 5 if you really want to push it. But like 1 to 5 is relatively close. It's 10 points, which in a lot of other leagues is also the case. Where like 1 to 3 is 10 points. So I think the league is actually significantly more competitive than all the other leagues this season, which is why obviously this game against Dortmund was such a big clash. And I don't think it necessarily hurts the competition of the league itself. I just think that you gotta let the other teams, grow in peace, so to speak, and that's not always been the case. But it does feel like it is a new era where like teams that you typically expect to be higher up on the table, such as your Leipzig, you expect them to be 3rd, perhaps. Your Leverkusen, you expect them to be 4th, perhaps. Maybe your Wolfsburg and your Gladbach, you expect them to be somewhat higher. Those teams are now, getting worse and worse. And instead, you've got Frankfurt, who's doing really well. Union Berlin is a very interesting one because Berlin has been for a long time a talent, a city filled with talent, but it hasn't been a club that really has taken advantage of it. Hertha Berlin has always failed at that. And Union Berlin, they're obviously not the size of Hertha Berlin, but they're doing so incredibly well that like them being up here, you could say, with a little bit more investment, they could really sustain that. So Union Berlin is a very interesting project long term. And as I said, I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think that Bayern winning the league 10 times in a row is hindering the growth of the league. Is it hindering the growth of Bayern? I don't think so, because if you look at our squad, we might have less world-class players, than ever, but we have probably the most stacked squad we've ever had. So I don't think it's hindering the growth because the club has made it clear that, they do want to win the Champions League. Like, they're building a squad, yes, to win the Bundesliga, yes, to win the DFB Pokal, but also to win the Bundesliga as well. That's also a very huge priority, and the club is showing that by their actions. So I don't think it's hindering Bayern as well. With that said, let's go back to looking at some of the stats. Dortmund has had more passes than us. I find that very interesting. Dortmund had more passes than Bayern. Bayern had 534 passes, and Dortmund had 564. Now, that 86% pass accuracy for both teams. I find that very, very fascinating because obviously Tuchel is a manager who you associated with. I mean, it depends which Tuchel you associate, but Tuchel is a manager that you can associate with, keeping the ball, being safe, having control of possession. And he did some of his comments after the game did state that he wanted more possession, he wanted more control. He didn't think that we were good enough in that sense. That we played too erratic, too hectic. We allowed Dortmund to try too much. But I think that stat right here, the 534 passes, I think over the. I mean, the season is towards the tail end, of course, but I think this part, this thing right here, the statistic right here, expect it to go up by a lot. I think next time we play Dortmund, expect another 100 to be added to it, so to speak. I also think, next time we play against Dortmund, expect them to have fewer shots on target. Now, of course, who knows? Who can predict the future? But expect them to have perhaps fewer shots on target, perhaps 3, but more shots off target. I think because that's just naturally what happens when you have more control of the ball. But yeah, overall, Bayern winning. Again, my man of the match was easily Thomas Müller. And by most metrics, he was the man of the match as well. I know a lot of people were very excited and very happy with Leroy Sané's performance as well. And Kingsley Coman's as well. I think a lot of people would argue that Kimmich had a relatively not bad performance, not like amazing performance, but just a solid performance. And I think if you take all of that into consideration, I hate the fact that they took the goal away from McCann. I will say that I hate that fact, but yeah, I'm very excited for what the future holds. Again, satisfied is probably the way I would describe this game. Not like happy, not sad, just satisfied. That's probably the best way of describing my feelings after that game. There's a lot of good things that I saw, and there's a lot of good things that I think we will see from here on out. Now, we've got 2 games against, I believe, Freiburg. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I can just check. But we've got 2 games coming up, and I believe it's against Freiburg. So one in the DFB Pokal, and then the other one in the league. So yeah, against Freiburg both times. In the DFB Pokal in 2 days. So and then on the weekend as well in the Bundesliga. So I'm very much looking forward to that, because they're obviously significantly higher on the table than many people would have expected, but they're not a team that I think, based on our quality, we should be struggling too much. So I would like to see not experiments. I don't want to use that word experiment, because that can always be a negative thing. But in the DFB Pokal, I would like us to be serious, focused, and concentrated. To play, if it needs to be, play the same lineup. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you need to rotate a little bit just to keep all the players happy. But then, especially in the game in the league, I want us to, do more rotations, more experiments, so to speak. That's kind of what I am hoping for. Just to keep everyone healthy, just to keep everyone's attitude good. Speaking of attitude, we will be talking about Cancelo in a minute as well. Actually, no, let's talk about Cancelo now, and just players that were on the bench. Cancelo, first person to go into the locker room, and Cancelo was the first person to leave the arena from the players and so forth. So, there was a report coming out as well while I was setting up this discussion. There was a report coming out as well that Bayern won't, under any circumstance. Oh, well. Never mind. Never mind. I almost fell for this. I opened Twitter just now. I'll show you my screen. I opened Twitter just now, and I almost fell for this. Almost. That Julian Nagelsmann has decided to agree to join Chelsea. But no, that's MiaSanMiaTV, not the right one. It's a fake one. It's a fake thing. So I almost fell for that. But yeah, as I was saying, however, according to the reports, Bayern will not be buying Cancelo, predominantly because they don't like his attitude. I'll read it to you verbatim. As of now, a permanent move for João Cancelo in the summer is not in sight, not even for a reduced fee. The bosses are aware of Cancelo's character and mood swings, who quickly gets dissatisfied when he doesn't play. That troll account, Marco, yeah, it absolutely is. He's a genius in trolling. I sort of agree. Sometimes it's a bit stupid, but some go live with Bayern now ones. Honestly, I don't really follow any like Bayern YouTubers. Neither the German ones nor like the English ones. There are a few now. The English ones, there's a Bayern Tactic and obviously Bayern Now. I don't follow any of them. I typically don't watch Bayern content. Like straight up, I don't watch Bayern content at all. That City tie is looking spicy now. It very much is. It very much is. It was looking spicy before. Again, I'm worried. Worried is probably too strong a word. I'm looking forward to the game, but I also know how it's going to go. And I said this plenty of times because we have a shoddy record against Manchester City where you win one and lose one. So I think that's exactly how it's going to go. And I think we're going to lose the first game, but then win the second game. I think that's how it's going to go. And I think we're going to go through based on that. Now, with that said, I did want to talk a little bit about two things. Let me try and find it. However, there was obviously after the game, there was a lot of discussion on Leroy Sané because all throughout the week, there were discussions about Tuchel and Sané. How's Sané gonna do? Is he gonna be able to, play under Tuchel? Is Tuchel gonna revive his career? Is he gonna be fired? Is he gonna be motivated? So on and so forth. You've heard it all. If you follow the Bayern news story and cycle, you've heard it all. Leroy Sané, his performances, sometimes are amazing and then sometimes just are not. It's inconsistent. That's what it is. And because inconsistency isn't tolerated at Bayern, he's always in question. And Tuchel was asked about Sané after the game, and he basically said, "I don't want to talk about Leroy Sané every press conference. Like everyone else, he has had many good moments, but also made 2 to 3 technical mistakes. There is room for improvement. The same applies to everyone. It's mainly up to him, and we will support him." Very simple, and I think that's the best for Sané because Sané is a player that clearly cares. And I think the issue with him, and I think that's the issue of a lot of players, honestly, but the issue with Sané is that he is a confidence player. At least that's how he comes across to me. Now, if you have a different opinion, let me know. But to me, Sané is a confidence player. As in, when he's confident, when he thinks that he's good, when he thinks that he's been playing well, he'll play well. He'll play better. He'll play great. When he's being criticized in the media, when, everyone's telling him, he's been shocking, he's been bad, so on and so forth, that's when his performances just nosedive, and it's just like they fall off a cliff. And I think the way Tuchel went about it, Nagelsmann went about it the same way. Credit to him as well. I think the way they go about it is very smart because they're giving him praise, but they're also saying, well, there are still aspects that he can improve on. And that's obviously the nature of a coach, nature of a manager, to say, you know what? I like what you're doing. I like what you're doing. You're doing well. But you can still improve on this aspect, that aspect, and this aspect. And I think that's sort of what we're going with, where you sort of just need to put a hand around him, and you just kind of need to be like, but also need to be firm and say, you know what? That's good, but it can be better. Like, that's good, but it can be better. And I think that's exactly what's needed about Sané. Now, the thing with Sané is, I don't want him to play. In the DFB Pokal game against Freiburg in 2 days, I don't want him to play. I want to see 2 players. There's many rotations that I want to, not many rotations that I want to see, but there are 2 main ones. Mane and Gnabry. And then throw in Musiala as well. Throw in Musiala in as well, all right? But like the 2 main ones that I want to see, you could say, okay, let's say 3 main ones. I'll throw in Musiala because obviously I want him to start as well. But like the 3 players that I want to see play are Mane, Gnabry, and Musiala. That's it. Like those 3, rotate them. Like I put them in, let them start. And the reason for that is very simple. Everyone's got a clean slate. Like everyone has got a clean slate. Like, a line has been drawn and everyone's starting from 0. We're all starting fresh. So everyone that has had a bad performance for the past year or so under Nagelsmann, to me, has now gotten a blank slate. Now, it doesn't last long. You can go negative very, very quickly. But the way I see it, you give the players that have been struggling the opportunity to play. That includes Gnabry, that includes Mane, and that includes, Musiala hasn't been struggling, so that's why I didn't include him. But like Gnabry and Mane specifically, I want them to start against Freiburg in the DFB Pokal. Now, people are going to make the argument, well, Mane came in, he didn't look that great against Dortmund. Yeah, sure, I agree. Gnabry, yeah, he did Okay. But I want him to start because there's a difference between starting and coming in. So the way I see it, I want those two players to start specifically, and obviously I want Musiala to play as well. So that's kind of my approach with this thing. On the weekends, we won't have Upamecano because he's got his 50 yellow card. So, will we see Pavard next to De Ligt and maybe Stanisic right next to them? Who knows? Cancelo is there as well. Who knows? Blint, I know everyone's written him off, but Blint is still there as well. And then obviously Sa is there as well. So I'm just saying there's a lot of options for the weekend as well. So I'm not too worried about that. That's an issue for then. Right now, the European card is the most important because we've not won that in such a long time that now it's finally time to actually win it. With that said, let me read some of the comments that you are writing. Fully agree. Once he puts his mind to it, he's one of our best players. It's a mentality thing with him, absolutely. And I don't think he's like mentally weak, because there's a difference between being mentally weak and just like being aware of what's being written and talked about you. Like, for example, I'll give you an example, right? Again, I've just gone into basketball, so I'm making a lot of basketball references because I've just gotten into it in the last like 3, 4, 5 months. So a player that I would consider to not be mentally weak, but just mentally conscious, with the surroundings, is Kevin Durant. The guy basically follows every single news about him, needs to know whatever has been said about him. But like when the moment shines, he will turn up. Like he's not weak mentally, but he's just mentally conscious. And I think that's the same with Sané, where he's not mentally weak because otherwise he would have never lasted at a club like Manchester City and a club like Bayern. He would have crumbled a lot earlier, and it would have gone downhill for him a lot quicker. But he's just very mental. He's just very conscious on his surroundings and what people are saying and people are writing about him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's watching this video right now, just like, what's being said about me, like that kind of thing. Whereas a lot of the other players in the team, they don't care. But yeah, I don't think he's weak necessarily. I think he just gets into his head too much. Which, you know what? That's who's the Ben Simmons of football? And oh my goodness, you're asking a great question. That's a tough one. I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea. But yeah, I don't know who the Ben Simmons of football would be. That's a great shot. That's a great shot. Not just with the mentality to not shoot. Müller. You know what? Müller. Nah, that doesn't make sense. But Müller, sometimes I just wish he shot. Which again, when it matters, he does. So that's all that matters to me. Question. What would you do if Nagelsmann joins Chelsea and meets us in the Champions League semi-finals? Quite frankly, tricky. It's a tricky one. Like, it's a tricky one. Like, what do I think? Again, I've not been on Twitter, so I don't know what like is being said right now about Nagelsmann. I say that, and like right away, Plettenberg, news Nagelsmann, Chelsea's an option for him. Project Vival, players, but nothing advanced. First of all, Chelsea owners have to call him and convince him. After that negotiation between Chelsea and Bayern, and next to Nagelsmann, there should be 2 other options, which are most likely Real Madrid. Actually, no, not Real Madrid, because they kind of came out they didn't come out, but their news stories, their papers came out and said that they're looking at Zidane, bringing back Zidane. Like, it's always Zidane or Ancelotti. So, but it's going to be like Tottenham, United, and maybe some other team. Maybe PSG. I don't think that'd be a bad. Nah, I think that'd be a terrible shout from Nagelsmann, honestly. But yeah, I don't think he'll go to Chelsea. What would be my reaction? We'll beat him. We'll beat Chelsea, most importantly. But I don't think I can't see him going to Chelsea. I think he's gonna take like a few months off, and then during the summer he's gonna choose where he goes. He's got options basically. Who do you think is the leaker in the dressing room? It's me. No, I'm joking. Cancelo. That's who I think. I think he's unhappy with not getting game time, and that's who the leaker is. Joking. I'm joking, people. I'm joking. Lord Saar to finally get some game time. Mark my words. I wouldn't be against it. I know people are memeing on it, but I wouldn't be against it because the thing with Saar is, yes, you can make the argument, well, he's only got himself to blame for not leaving. But you could all, other players, you would say, well, good on them. Good on them that they're not leaving. Good on them. They've got the mentality to stick it out and do well. When Bayern wanted to get rid of Robin after 2012, and then the whole state, well, I can't say the whole stadium, but like majority of the stadium booed him during the Bayern versus Netherlands game. I wish there was more games like that, like a club versus a country. Like during the Bayern versus Netherlands game, and Robin got booed because he missed the penalty in the 2012 Champions League final. Bayern wanted to get rid of him. Robin said, "No, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving." To quote the Wolf of Wall Street. And you know what? Hey, a little bit of Champions League, victory here and there, scoring the final goal, and suddenly, people went from booing him to Robin, Mr. Wembley. Just saying, there's a lot of short-termism when it comes to football. People will call one thing, elite mentality, while the other they just call someone being greedy. I think if Saar gets a fair chance and then he still not performs, we get rid of him and we terminate his contract. But I think, just for the sake of it, he's an option. Same as Davy Blind. They're an option. So let them play. That's how I see it. Like, if you've got them on the payroll, let them play. Thoughts on Sabitzer performance at Manchester United? I think he's going to stay with Manchester United. Obviously, today against Newcastle, Newcastle has been, in my opinion, probably like not the best team in the league. Obviously, that's based on the table. That's Arsenal. But like Newcastle has been the most exciting team in the league, in my opinion. They haven't really been outplayed. Like every time I've watched them, they've outplayed the other team. And I felt like that was the case today as well. But overall, like Sabitzer has performed well for United, and I don't think he's going to stick at Bayern. I think he's going to leave Bayern. There were reports as well saying that, he might leave. There is no chance that he'll stay, especially with Lima coming in for Bayern as well. So I think that's an option that he stays with United. I don't know whether they'll pay the fee, and I don't know what our fee would, that we'd request for him. But regardless, I do think and I do hope that wherever he goes, he actually gets game time, which he didn't get at Bayern. That's just sort of my thoughts on Sabitzer and his performances. There were leaks during the Pep era as well. Absolutely. But back then, the rumor was that it was Philip Lahm. That was always the rumor, that it was Philip Lahm. And you know what? I always believed that rumor as well, that it was Philip Lahm that was the leaker. But there's always different rumors, different people saying different things. So it is what it is in regards to that. What's your opinion on our match against Dortmund? I talked about this at the beginning of this discussion, so you can go back later on and watch it in full. But basically, it's YouTube, so you can actually go back and watch it right now, I guess. But like in a nutshell, really, I'm satisfied. I'm not overly happy. I'm not sad. I'm not disappointed. I'm just satisfied. I think there's a lot of good in it, and I think there's a lot of worrying things / bad things still there. But because it was our first game, under Tuchel, and because it was our first game under this under a 4-2-3-1, which obviously Müller is naturally going to excel in, and the players typically our wingers should naturally excel in. I think that you take all of that into consideration, and then you take the opponent into consideration. We did okay. You could make the argument, well, the game shifted the second they conceded the goal. That's always going to happen in world football. Like, the game's going to shift the second you concede a goal. It's, teams are going to concede goals. It's on you. It's on you as an individual and you as a team. If you want to challenge for the title, then going a goal down should not completely deflate and destroy you. You should still say to yourself, you know what, we can do it. It's only 1-0. It's only 1-0. We've only played 20 minutes. We can turn this around. But for Dortmund, it was just a case of, it's 1-0. It's Bayern. Same story as always. It's over. And if you tell yourself it's over already from the get-go, then why did you even turn up? Why did you even turn up? But for Bayern, it was business as usual. Bayern against Dortmund, it didn't work. Like this game, I wasn't worried from the slightest. I wasn't worried about it at all. Like before the game happened, again, I was very confident. I didn't really, think, oh no, if we lose this, we can't win the Bundesliga. I didn't think that. It's Dortmund. Dortmund always bottle. Rule 1, Dortmund always bottle. And you can rely on that more than anything. Our form, the way we play, new manager. Rule number 1 is that Dortmund will bottle it. So that's why I was not worried. I was not worried in the slightest at all. But yeah. What is Savitz's best position? He's basically able to play all the positions like 6, 8, or 10. There's not necessarily a best position that he's got. I mean, he's played as a right back, I want to say. Not left back, I was right back at Leipzig as well. So he's basically like a utility man, like a true utility man who can play all of the positions. And as long as he gets like a clear direction, he's able to play it all. So I mean, you could probably ask him to play striker, and he'd play striker for you. Like that's the kind of player that he is. So there is no like best position with him, but there is a just give him the good directions, and he knows what to do basically. Still hasn't sunk in as Tuchel as our manager, hoping he delivers the number 7 this season. Jinx protector, the Jinx protector. Don't you think it's a bit too early for the Jinx protectors? Don't you think it's a bit too early for the Jinx protectors? We had that during the 2020 when we won the Champions League, the whole Jinx protector thing. But I thought that only happened like during the semis. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. The semis hasn't arrived yet. I've never believed in Jinx protector. I say it how I think it is, and that's very simple. I think we're going to win the Champions League this season. We've probably got the best cup manager in world football. That used to be Klopp. The best cup manager used to be Klopp. But I think if you look at like the last 5, 6, 7 years, Tuchel. It's Tuchel. It's really that simple. It's Tuchel. What is my best starting 11 versus City? Well, it depends how we're going to play moving forward. Are we going to stick with the 4-2-3-1? Are we? If that is the case, you know what? You can make the argument to play the same way that we played against Dortmund. Like realistically, you can make that argument. I would like to see Mane versus Dortmund, but it's also a matter of form with him. Like he hasn't been that great. So, but like Mane is the kind of direct player that might really expose Manchester City. And he's also got a relatively good record against them in terms of like performing against them. But can you really make like an argument to start someone based off of like the past? Not really. The past record and the past performances, not really. It's all about the present. But like for the most part, I wouldn't change too much. I know people are going to make the argument that Pavard needs to be subbed off for, let's say, Mazraoui or Cancelo. I get that. I truly do get that. But in terms of crosser, Pavard is Cancelo is the better crosser. But in terms of like crosser and defender, Pavard is the more balanced of the three. And so the argument for me is that like if we're playing a 4-2-3-1, and with wide wingers, then having something like a good defender and a good crosser is going to be very beneficial. But again, the game is still a bit away. I do want to see certain players under Tuchel. I want to see Mane. I want to see Gnabry start against Freiburg in the DFB Pokal, and that way then I can formulate, how I want to play. I want to see Cancelo start as well, but like his attitude is just very worrying. So like if he doesn't start, I don't really mind. Like if you're gonna get rid of him anyway, like based on his attitude, then that's fine. But yeah, like the way I see it, the main two ones that I want to see play in the DFB Pokal are Mane and Gnabry. Those are the two ones. And I would like to see Mane play as a winger, not a striker. But, you can't get everything. Because clearly, when Mane came on against Dortmund, he played as a striker. And I just wish he was playing as a winger, not a striker. But it is what it is. Like we'll see how it all pans out, of course. But there's still a little to go until Manchester City. How am I feeling about City? Again, same as I have been since the draw was announced, which is basically just City's going to win the first game. We're going to win the second. Our record against City has always been like that, where we win one game and then we win one game and they win the other, regardless of like how good a team is or how bad a team is. So I think it's going to be the same thing here, and I think they're going to win the first one, and I think we're going to win the second one. It's really that simple. Yeah, basically, Mateos was saying that, like, according to his sources, he's got other intel that like Bayern didn't contact Nagelsmann, and the way Bayern conducted themselves was not very MiaSanMiaTV like, which is just a very stupid thing to say. IMO, but obviously Khan just like hits back and he's like, well, we used to have discussions. We used to have back and forth discussions back when we were players as well. But back then it was in the interest of Bayern, and now he's clearly acting against the interest of Bayern, so on and so forth. And oh no, we contacted him first, blah, 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 so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. And you know how it goes when you've got two people that have just too much ego, too much pride, that just keep beefing with each other. When I see it in the news everywhere, and that's just the way it happens. The way it's happening here right now. That's all it really is. It'll be forgotten by next week. I think most people are already over it, but unfortunately, some people, unfortunately, papers have got to sell. So they're going to keep talking about it, but papers have got to sell. I very much hope this as well. It's probably my biggest hope, because Mane, he's dangerous. Like, he offers us something else that a lot of the other players that we have don't. And it used to be Gnabry that offered us that. And Gnabry, funny enough, I feel like he's getting better and better. But I feel like he's finally not, bad, so to speak. I feel like he's finally getting better. But it's too early to say that. So I don't want to like just outright say that. I'll just wait for now and bide my time until I see more. That's why I want to see him start. Do you think Bayern will go through? Absolutely. I think City will win the first game 1-0, and I think Bayern will win the second game 2-0. Really that simple. No, I think it's a 1-0, 2-0, just because of the one team wins the game, the other team wins the second game kind of thing. But yeah, with all of that said, though, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot that can be discussed as well. But I just wanted to discuss this game because I didn't really have the chance to yesterday because I had a party yesterday. So that's why I wasn't able to like discuss the game yesterday. But I'm just very satisfied with how the game went. I'm glad. I rewatched it like 3 times because Sky Sport did the lovely thing in the UK. Sky Sport did the lovely thing of having the game live on YouTube, so I can rewatch it. Very simple. It's on YouTube for me in the UK, so that's beautiful and that's nice. But like the way I see it is just a case of, well, yeah, I've been able to rewatch it, and it's a tactical camera that Sky Sport uses as well. So it's like a faraway camera, so you can see how the teams are lined up, so on and so forth, with the stats showing up every now and then as well. And it's just really, really nice. It's just really, really nice because it gives you a different perspective. It's not. I wouldn't want to watch a game for the first time with like a faraway perspective, like the tactics cam. But I do miss the tactics cam that they used to have in the UK. Like they used to have a camera where you could see the game just from above, like it is in FIFA almost. They used to have that as an experiment when I was like 10, 11-ish and watching TV, but they don't have that anymore. And I wish that came back. But yeah, with all of that said, though, ladies and gentlemen, Alpha, what does Mateus do nowadays besides promoting NFTs? Nothing. I think you remember NFTs and writing to Sky Sport. Well, he is a presenter for Sky Sport. He is one of their quote unquote experts. So that's why he's saying that according to his intel, so on and so forth. You know how it is. You know how it is. Oh, I've got sources and they tell me this and that. Well, that might be true. That might be true, but it is what it is. I'm excited because I know we'll get better with each game in a Tuchel, to be honest. I very much agree. As I said, that's why I was very satisfied with the game, because there's a lot of good things, but still a lot of things that we can improve on, and that's always important. Because if I see it, Tuchel sees it, and what I like so much about it is the interviews that Tuchel gave after the game, where he essentially said, he was basically saying that, yeah, there's a lot of things that we can improve on. We weren't great here. We didn't do this well. We didn't do that well. We're still too hectic. We're still too erratic. We need to calm down a little bit. We need to, breathe a little bit, have a little bit of possession sometimes, just to let the flow of the game flow more. It's like little simple things. I'm like, yeah, that's how you're speaking my language, bro. You're speaking my language, bro. That's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I'm after. That's exactly what I need to hear. So when I saw that, I was just like, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tuchel. He said what I wanted to hear. None of that. Well, we scored 4 goals. We could have scored 8, but overall, I'm satisfied. And we played amazing. I'm like, no, we didn't play amazing. Dortmund first 10 minutes played better. Last 10 minutes played better. Second half, the first 5 to 10 minutes, they played better. We just got the crucial goals at the crucial moments. And we didn't play better during like the besides like the time periods that I mentioned, but like I don't want you to like talk nice about it. I want you to be critical, be honest. Like, just be honest. That's all I want. Just honesty. All right. As a wise man once said, honesty is the best policy. That's really how it is. It's the best policy. Let's just be honest. You, me, Tuchel. Let's be honest. It wasn't good enough, but it was good. It was good in the sense that, yeah, we won a game that really mattered. But overall, the performance still wasn't good enough. And I like that. I like to hear that. Shout out to Tuchel. Shout out to Tuchel. Also, shout out to water. The gift of life, water. With all that said, I'll answer this last question and then I'll hop off. Just because it's almost 11. So I'll answer this last question and hop off. Is Haaland potentially being injured positive or negative for Bayern? It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both because Haaland gives you a certain air of predictability. You know what he's about. You know what Haaland is about. You know what he can do. You know how he plays. It's just difficult stopping him. But like you've got a certain focal point with Haaland in the team, which you don't have with Julian Alvarez. And really that's very important. And it's a positive and a negative for Manchester City. It is a positive and negative for us as well. Haaland being injured or not, because they've got a player that they can run, will hold up the ball well, will manage to get the other players involved if they try and play a counter attack. But you also got a focal point where you know what he's all about, and you've got players that have played against him before that can stop him. So it's a bit of both. I guess you could say it's neutral. It's not a net. It's not a net positive. It's not a net negative. It's just neutral, because like there are good things about it and there are negative things about it, and there's like I would say it's equal. But yeah. Well, like I was saying earlier, in regards to Mazraoui playing as a right back, the issue is, right, teams don't play asymmetrical lineup anymore. Like they don't play a 4-2-3-1, symmetrical. They play an asymmetrical team. And Mazraoui is he greater than Pavard defensively? No. Is he a better crosser than Pavard? No. Does he offer us other things that Pavard doesn't do? Yes. But we've already got like an asymmetrical 4-2-3-1 with especially like the attacking the attacking side of the pitch being very aggressive in Davis and potentially at Coman. I found very interesting that like Sane played on the right wing. But yeah, if asymmetrical 4-2-3-1s are a bit, well, asymmetrical back fours are really a thing. You don't really have two hyper aggressive fullbacks or two hyper defensive fullbacks. You kind of have one that's hyper aggressive and one that's not so much, so that you can kind of balance it out. Like if your right side is attacking right now, your hyper aggressive fullback knows, okay, I need to be a little bit further deep, and vice versa, so to speak. So I think, and I know it's Pavard doesn't want to play it. I know Pavard doesn't want to play as a right back. I get that. But the way I see it is, come Manchester City, do I think, Mazraoui is going to start over him? No. Do I think Cancelo is going to start over him? No. I think it's going to be Pavard. I think Pavard is going to play. Now, again, I don't know whether we'll stick with a 4-2-3-1. That remains to be seen because, quite frankly, formations and the team might change. But it is what it is. It is what it is. We'll see how it all pans out. And yeah, it very much goes with this one. If Lucas wasn't injured, you can switch around from having aggressive left side to right. I think I very much agree. Like if Lucas was healthy, you could play Lucas and then you could play Cancelo, and I think that would work. But Lucas isn't healthy. He's injured, so you got to take that into consideration. Upcoming games against Freiburg, Tuchel will be tested a little bit. Well, I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think so is there are teams. I don't know how I'm going to say this without coming across as like just cocky and big-headed, but there are teams. And I know I'm saying that, considering the fact that we've not won a DFB Pokal in years, but there are teams that you should just beat. That you should just beat. And it doesn't matter who the manager is. It doesn't matter how new the manager is. You should just beat based on the quality of your squad compared to theirs. Based on the wage, I know wages don't play football. It's the players that play football. But based on the wages that you pay compared to the other team. Based on everything, when you take that into consideration, you should just beat. Like, no questions asked. You should just beat. And that's a little bit of an issue that we've had recently where there hasn't been the case. We haven't just beat the teams that have been significantly worse than us or significantly smaller than us. And again, this isn't me being disrespectful here. I'm just saying it how it is. Like, we should have a certain dominance, so to speak, over certain clubs. And this should be a case of that. Now, of course, Freiburg, they're going to, especially in the cup game, they're going to cause us a lot of troubles. But I also think the fact that we've got them twice in a row is going to be quite nice, because if it works the first time, then we're going to go with the same thing in the second game as well. But every game right now is a final. And typically, when it comes to Bayern, whenever the games really mattered, we turned up. You saw that against Dortmund. When it mattered, we turned up. That's why I think the first game in the DFB Pokal, we're going to turn up because it's such an important game. And the players know it, and the club knows it, the manager knows it, everyone knows it, how important that game is, right? So that's why I think they're going to turn up. The game in the Bundesliga, however, could be a lot more tricky. It could be more tricky. But again, if things go well in the weekday, during the weekday, I think it's going to go well during the weekend. If it doesn't go as well during the weekday, then I can see us struggling a lot on the weekend. But I don't think we're going to struggle too much during the weekday, and that's why I don't think we're going to struggle too much during the weekend. We should see some rotations in the upcoming Pokal game. Yeah, for me personally, there are two names that I want to see on the starting lineup, definitely. I mentioned those already, but those two names are Sadio Mane and Gnabry. I think those two should start, just because those two have been under the limelight a lot recently, and they've come on more times as a substitute than not. And I kind of want to see them start just to kind of see where they're at under Tuchel specifically. They got a clean slate. Now that someone got fired, they got a clean slate, but now they need to perform. And that's why I would want to see them to start, definitely. Obviously, other substitutions, yes. Musiala, absolutely. I want to see him start. Other players as well, maybe make the argument for Mazraoui, maybe Cancelo, maybe David Blind, maybe Stanisic, maybe Sad. There are a lot of names that you can put in. Gravenberg, I'd like to see as well. But you don't want to make too many changes, because obviously then it is a DFB. It's a cup game after all, so you want to be cautious as well. But there's definitely options to make changes. With all of that said, I do want to call it a day here. We've now been live for 55 minutes, near enough. So I think it's a good time to call it quits. But yeah, these are just my thoughts on Bayern versus Dortmund, and just my overall thoughts on the Freiburg game as well. If things go well, again, I can't always say because I don't know how my time works out. But if things go well, we'll have a preview for a proper preview of people coming in as well for the Freiburg game. But again, I can't say that definitively. That all depends on how things go for the next couple of days, just because work might get really busy. With the system being down on Friday, there might just be that tomorrow I'm going to be working extra long. Same for Tuesday, so who knows? But if things go well, you'll see me soon. If not, hey, it do be like that sometimes. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all having a good day, morning, evening, year, century, decade, April, and just enjoy your time. Until next time, peace out, have a nice day, see you all, and